I made the title so I wouldn't forget to the advice of put a silver dime in your water. If you get those 5 gallon jugs, whether you buy it, make it after you already have it, what they used to do is they throw silver in there because silver is a natural antibiotic. And that silver kept their wells pure because it's not enough to live by water if you can't drink it. There, I had to get that off my mind. What is it I have learned teaching about all these bad things, preaching to form a choir? I mean, I'm not preaching to the choir yet. I've got to establish a choir. The kingdom of dust. Dust is going to be a big part of the Bible message here. Kingdom of dust has been distorted. Now we're going to look at that in Isaiah 24. And that basically is everything that this builds on is Isaiah 24, the kingdom of dust that has been distorted, perverted. I think by the clean blood of Jesus Christ, and it might have something to do with vitamin B12. Get a load of that, Luther. You know my good friend Luther is Yaswil Soring. Vitamin B12. I'm going to jump right out of the gate going into Genesis 9, trying to point out that there was a time when people lived to be almost freaking 1,000 years old, but they couldn't eat meat. And then there was a flood. And the first thing when Noah hopped out the ark, he goes, "What?" Because God was saying, "I used to have you only eat vegan, but now I give you all food. And without eating the flesh of animals, you can't get B12 unless you jump forward in time to where they can synthesize it. And without B12, you go crazy and then you die." So we got to get to the bottom of that. With the idea of raising godly offspring, that's why we were created from the dust in Genesis chapter 2. We'll see that has nothing to do with eretz. Eretz is what was created there in Genesis 1. This is going to be a good one. So we can raise children and have godly offspring. And we can do it without the help of the world saying, "This is our rock and roll. We all do we all do on, baby. Let's do the twist." Well, it's not like once they take away your debit card and your have the plasma thing and all the cities burn and the people like us in the country are left. Well, yeah, it'll be sad, but it's not like 2 weeks later we're not going to be like, let's have a bonfire, because they're the dead ones far away from us. It's not like we can mourn for them forever. We don't have to have their idea of what's fun because what they're selling are women, what they're selling are wives and our daughters. Has that led to them being happy? Or has it led to us being a generation of grandpas with children that are going like, should I have a gender surprise party? What? As if I would have never danced or sang without them supplying the idol of Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be Good. You guys know that song? Down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans. back up in the woods among the evergreens. Life will continue with suffering, with singing, only we'll be alive and still set apart as the saints of God who have to live with our wives and our children, hopefully raising godly offspring. Welcome everybody to Mud Flood. Was Armageddon the Mud Flood? Was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to show you the thing. No, I mean debate you in a fair and honest way. I can't believe are all these pictures new? Let me cough here so I'll turn this off. That was probably more like a double cough. So, we're moving into the season of when they like to kill people and do, the Ides of March are over now. We know, or we don't know yet, but we'll find out who's dead or alive of the mafia families that run the earth. It's just that if I get weird, it's because this is the weird month, man, between the Ides of March and Hitler's birthday. That's April 15th. And they run it all the way up to the 19th. There's just so many. This is only half of, this isn't even, this is scratching, this is some of the big ones that they do on between the Ides of March and Hitler's celebration. And there's this thing, right? Did we look at that? Did we look at these guys? I guess this guy's dead now. He looks like this guy's brother. Which one just died? John Kerry's still alive and Robert Mueller's dead and Donald Trump doesn't care. Here's Biff Tannen. He doesn't care. I can't believe John Kerry got endorsed by that guy. You see, they had such a good plan to reverse the psychology. Let me make sure I'm sharing the screen here. They had such a good plan to reverse the psychology when they were trying to prove that it's just a satanic panic. There's no such thing yet, is it? And then Anton LaFey got famous. He, converted Sammy Davis Jr., who can make the sun shine, converted him from Judaism to Satanism. So it wasn't much of a leap of faith. But the satanic panic was so much, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. John Kerry could even campaign with I don't know what he claimed to be, a reincarnated Satan or something. Whatever it was, he was up to whatever that cheese is. When you don't have it, no Gouda. Look at him. They're happy. He's going like, you really? You're going to tell your people to vote for me? And then and then this guy, I could read it. It's almost like you could read his mind also. He's thinking, yeah, they'll vote for you and then we'll cook and eat their children. Because that's what they do. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get into how many people. Is it true that simply because there's a TikTok that now everybody knows Helen Keller was faking it as much as that Stephen Hawking? And they were putting words in her mouth like they were putting words in Stephen Hawking's mouth? But you don't have to believe it because it was only on TikTok. What do you believe? Everything that you read on the TikTok? That's what they used to say about the Helen Keller. It was her best friend that's going like, after he fooled her for 50 years, and it was like, wait a minute, you totally faking it, man. Faking it, faking it. But I got to get into this Bible thing I was getting into more and more. Here's what this eugenics guy said. Helen Keller was big into eugenics. I think that's how I kind of stumbling segued into this one here. One of the people, you guys know the name Galton and their followers in eugenics, had a new idea of future utopia, what Christianity should be. This guy, right? Well, look at his name in un momento. There you go. Speaking that language, Spanish language to you, you knew I meant in a moment because you know 4,000 Espanol words. Cognates, importante, un momento. But I ask you in closing, why call it a new religion? Is it not all of it simply a legitimate new interpretation of our Christianity? It is not all latent in our scriptures. Is it not all? He asked rhetorically. So they're thinking now that they know about how uh, evolution, Galton, that was the Darwin's bulldog. He taught Darwin's bulldog the races how they should have slaves. I can prove it because I've got these things pulled up here. This was about Pastors for Eugenics, June 6, 1913. I drug this other quote out. You might want to read it. It's endorsed by Freud and his followers. Meanwhile, eugenics draws upon all these domains and has pointed out many and will, let us hope, find out many more practical ways of improving practical ways. I feel like, I get older, I'm getting the grinders are growing few. I sometimes reading, it's hard. I sound like a lisping Lisa from that movie, the Josie and the Pussycats. Let's try it again. Find out many more practical ways of improving the human stock and helping the world on towards the kingdom of some kind of Superman to which the men of today may someday prove to be only a transition, a link which, with all that absorbs us now, may be lost out, may be lost sight of, and possibly become a missing link. I felt like I was reading pretty good there until at the end I was going like, oh my goodness, absorbs. Anyway, these guys were all like, they have one for it and one against it. But anyway, they're all faking it. They're all believing in crazy, you know, Zionism, helping set up Zionism. But it was the Presbyterians. But man, I was a Presbyterian for 50 years. Well, 45. What I got here? It is desirable that the personal health of each party to a marriage be certified to, but the requirement for such certificate ought to come from the state. What? Continuing, not from the church, because it is the function of the state to guard the health of its citizen. In case you didn't know that, if you like your doctor, you can keep him because he's going to be broke too when the EMP hits the ATM and then your bet card doesn't work. I was trying to get another. You know what I was trying to do. Eugenics. That's all they talked about 100 years ago. It was just same thing, and then we taught it to the Nazis. The principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. Oh, 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. So if they think that your mom was dumb and maybe your dad or your mom or your dad and their mom or dad, you aren't having any children. You're lucky they're only cutting your fallopian tubes. Oh no. Look, 516. Beautiful view. Look at that. Notice where that rock is. Uh-oh. Still five. All this happens. These pictures are all within 1 second. Huh. Do you want to see those again? all within 1 second. See this rock? You could tell that this guy he stopped this car where the trunk just barely sees it. So he only moved after he saw this coming, he stopped within 8 seconds. So that's about how slow you have to be going on this type of a trail. Unreal. Because that's and now see he doesn't move. There's the rock right there. So that guy was pretty quick on the brake. He must have heard something. And wow. Hey, anybody seen my backpack? Have you ever look at that? This is a house that got bombed in Iran. And it's like my grandma, man. She got her chairs wrapped. Remember when people used to do that? And this is in Tehran. Huh. That was interesting to me. This was interesting to me too. So there's Palm Beach Pete say he's definitely not Jeffrey Epstein. You can't, and those are even though the bottom teeth match, the top teeth don't match. So just because the bottom teeth match, you can't prove it. Here's something that's highlighted. It says cobalt is the active center in a group of coenzymes called cobalamin. Vitamin B12, the best known example of this type, is an essential vitamin for all animals. Hmm? Now that's going to tie into the Bible study with Genesis. Because as it is today, as we sit here, you need vitamin B12 or you'll die. You get it from flesh of animals. And everybody needs it, but humans get it that way. And if you're a vegan, you take a vitamin because you need it. You don't get it like vitamin D. You can't go out in the sun and go, I'm good to go. I got the red velvet light or whatever is the new fad, which I want one. you know. Anyway, we'll get to that. There's a few more pictures though. Might as well see them all. Now, wouldn't this be a rock, a cleaned off rock? Look, all rocks are body parts. We're going to be studying the pericardium a little bit right now, but more later. The pericardium is like if this was dying in a panic because it was being flooded and it had thoughts of like, I need to live. I wish I would have listened to Noah. I could have been on that boat. You would be having adrenaline and other things thrown into your blood system that would gather on your pericardium. It's like a balloon around your heart. But doesn't that look like every rock in the world? All right, there's only about 40 different shapes of rocks. Now, some of them are, because the Titans died like men, the Genesis 1, not made of dust. And they go from 6 feet, 12 feet, 15, 18, 30, up to 3,000. Mountains are combinations of probably 6 or 7 of them just wound up and just stacked together. And, there's not really that much. Oh, this is from the other day. I was talking about how all these guys. So what I figured out when I was talking about how they have the kosher food and everybody has to pay, it's not paying a tax to have the food made kosher. They're providing a service to make sure we do it right. And it's like these guys. So what I understand, the way I understand it is, these men were all Jewish, but they do not control Hollywood. They founded Hollywood, and now it's controlled by corporations. So it is frivolous, nonsense, anti Semitic garbage to not just tell it like it is. They founded Hollywood, and now it's run by corporations that anybody can invest in, and more people are invested in it than Jewish people, I'll bet. And they don't even need. It's like you could do it on the phone too. It's uh, it's easier and easier. They're consolidating everything. So anyway, this 12 monkeys thing and the virus, I can't let it go. There's the Bimini. That's those headless people. I can't read that. Does anybody recognize this picture? This hey, that's not going through the center. That's going where wasn't Trump going to invade this island? Why is it coming out down here by Drake's Passage? And look at there's a whale. There's a whale. It says whales, but I can't read that. And now we got this Linnell. I looked that up. Don't worry, we'll look that up. Here we have, gee whiz, genuine Guatemalan guano, because nothing would grow without the guano. This is all just the airport scene from the guy who spread the vaccine. I'm Longfellow. Look, does anybody know what this is? Piles what? Piles what? And you know that there, even in the movie, you see how perfectly this is lined up here? I don't believe that's an accident. I really don't. Any more pictures? Oh, hey, look, RJ. This is when, they say that Trump announced that they had peace talks with Iran and everything's going to be okay. Look how high the stock market went up. It just jumped up as soon as at 10:02 he made the announcement. 10:04, 11:04, boom, it went off like crazy, and it calmed down the market and everything. But look, 15 minutes before, some group of people invested $580 million in that it would go down, that something would happen that would make the market go, you know, bingo, people start buying again. And they did. But somebody bought 15 minutes early. You might find that suspicious. Again, with the vibrations, the sounds, vibrations. 440, that sounds like a nice round number. So evidently, I wanted to make, well, that's where musicians all over the world have agreed to tune their instruments to 440. Well, I'm not sure they do that anymore. I think people might have wanted to at one time. I know they did, because there's your proof. Now, here's what caused the problem, middle C. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but you can see that's a fraction. That's what we like to call it. There, here now. The International Standard Pitch. It was 1885 conference in Vienna that established this standard. Well, it's standard in Italy, Austria, Hungary, Russia, Prussia, Saxony, Sweden, and Württemberg. This was included in the convention of the 16th and 17th of November, 1885, regarding the establishment of concert pitch. Now, get a load of this. In the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, so they were ratifying what pitch, what tones in the Treaty of Versailles that formally armistice World War I. They all because of the Middle C set it at a more of a fraction. Huh. That's weird, huh? I know everybody wants to study the Bible, but I dare study this stuff, and then I got to just show it to you. Because this is part of it here. Scientific pitch is also known as wisdom pitch, philosophical pitch, slova pitch. Verdi tuning. It is an absolute concert pitch. Is it still being used? It was used in the 18. This guy, oh, it's a picture. This guy, they all did it. 432. Well, there you go. Something about vibrating. And then here's the last picture. I used it as the thumbnail, celebrating now 30 years of being, you know, I became a flat earther in 2015, but in 1995, I believed in geocentricity and that I believed I was on a globe, but we weren't spinning. It was geocentric. I wanted you to notice that it's the firmament too. You see you know, and look at all the math they're doing. You have to do some decimals because they're definitely we're dealing with a third. There was much resistance to the transition between the two theories, probably because look at for over 1500 years, Ptolemy's geocentric model was kicking ass. And the reason it was hard, it was gradually superseded, reading above the blue part, by the heliocentric, that's the lie, of the Jesuits, Copernicus, Galileo, and the suspected murdering Jesuit Kepler. Now, here's what it says. There was much resistance to the transition between these two theories since for a long time the geocentric postulate produced more accurate results. I wonder why. Well, they didn't discover those Portolian lines yet, so they could fake it. But so here's you go. It's not like they didn't know about epileptics, concentric analemmas. This is from the 1500s, man. They knew all about it. They could do these fancy signals and do their alchemy. Two observations supported the idea that the Earth was the center. You want to know what they are? First, the sun, everywhere on the Earth, it appears that the sun appears to revolve around the Earth once a day. From everywhere on Earth, it appears that the moon and the planets have their own motions. They also appear to revolve around the Earth about once a day. The stars appear fixed on a celestial sphere, rotating about once a day through the poles. Second, the Earth seems to be unmoving from the perspective of an earthbound observer, feels solid, stable, stationary. But, here's the thing. Don't let them say everybody always believed in, they always knew that it wasn't flat. They always knew it was a globe. Well, they sure had a funny way of showing it. Wait, that, darn it, there goes the momentum. There goes the momentum. I was going to go right to this Bible verse and just blow your socks off. Now I'm sitting here going like, oh man, what could have been? I'm kidding. Look, here's this. I have given, go eat the herbs. And now in Genesis 9, I have given you all things. I used to give you the herb before I gave you the herb. Now I have given you all things. And it's always something like to do in the future. Look, I've given you the rainbow as a promise. I've given to your seed this land. Well, the seed is still the seed. So it does seem that the 117 out of these, about 5%, right? Am I doing that right? Would fit into this. Now I'm going to refresh your memory with the Berean standard. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. As I gave you the green plants, now you eat everything. What do you mean by everything, Paco? Well, let's look at, I mean, you've got these terrified animals, I guess, but if you treat them right, all the animals of the earth, all the birds of the sky, all the small animals that scurry along the ground, all the fish of the sea will look on you with fear and terror. I've placed them in your hand. Everything that lives and moves shall be food for you. Unless later he makes a law that says you can't eat it for that group. But you must not eat the blood. Don't eat the meat. It has the lifeblood. It's not dust. But I wonder if it turned to dust. I'm pretty sure that blood turned to dust in the flood when they were reserved in judgment, and the Titans died like men because they didn't do right by the widows and the orphans. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. And then, here, look at this. And I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. For while the animal kills a person, it must die. And if anyone murders a fellow human, must die. The more I live and study, the more I think that the reason, God didn't want Laban killed, didn't want anybody else killed, is that something about Abel's blood that we'll look at that too. When it cried out, it defiled, it poisoned the ground. It had to get washed out and purified to a point of the flood that also was a part of God's plan, but it definitely affected, we went down to, you'll feel good if you live like King David to be 70, 72 years old, that'll be old. I remember back when I was a child, somebody 65 years old, man, that was old. So there you go. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. Because there's no vitamin B12 in only the herbs. Maybe we'll get to that. I know we'll get to this. What is it?
This was the beginning of a whole new history in the United States.
Oh, I wanted you to hear that in 1933, this guy's old enough, and he's telling you like it is. It was the beginning of a whole new history.
Open for censorship.
We were pretty liberally attacked by the politicians.
And there were concerted efforts to try to get rid of this organization.
But anyway, so they did. They put a bunch of leftists in charge right there when they took over the history of the country. That's around 1933. This guy did it.
In favor of Helen Keller. But while he technically cleared her name.
You know what? I don't think I have that. Let me check my setting right. I'm not hearing that in my headphones. Testing. So are you guys hearing that okay? Because I think I'm hearing it through my computer. That's a no Gouda. Could you hear that?
He spent the rest of his life convinced she was a fraud. The relationship between Keller, him, and the school ended, and he later called her a living lie. So, on one hand, this is a single plagiarism incident with an 11-year-old girl. I mean, I was still digging holes in the backyard at that age.
No, it wasn't by the girl. It was by the communists that Anne Sullivan did it.
Literature or politics. And the output changed immediately. Helen Keller's journal, published when Keller was 58, it was thinner and more emotional. Let Us Have Faith, published at age 60. It was a collection of short, inspirational essays with no political edge.
So I'm just trying to prove they faked it, like Stephen Hawking, because They have one playbook. So that really, oh, gee whiz, Paco, how'd you figure it out? Well, they have one playbook.
Some find it remarkable that during Vietnam and the civil rights era, a woman with Keller's strong opinion stayed silent, but she was also in her late 70s by that time, so I just think it's unfair to draw too much from that.
Right. I don't. Hey, man, keep up the good work, Zach. You've sent me some really crazy things, man. The Sicilian, I don't like to bring out my my knights so quickly, but you know, I'm more of a defensive player. Suspicion stalks fame, Helen Kelter. Uh-oh, they're closing me out here. It's all fake. Look at that. They're shutting me out. They shut me out. I waited too long. Was it a fake? So I searched that part. And look, it was Gen Z believes it was fake because they got the TikTok. Man, we had our friends. Remember how hard we were trying to say, don't fall for the QAnons. They're not going to hang them up on the phone lines. That's just bullshit. No, they're waiting for the right optics. Trust the plan. That was what they told me. And I said, I don't trust the plan at all. What's gene therapy? And why does my thing always keep sliding down to the bottom? What am I searching here? Can you name anti-eugenic people in the 1920s? I was hoping that that computer would show me something. They're showing Zionism. Zionism helps, you know, so they're very hard to find out what's going on. And really, I looked hard. You can't find somebody that spoke out really against eugenics, Darwinism, on the left or the right. They were all in on it. We'll get to that Bible study. Un momento. Look, Fritz Lang. Does that name ring a bell? Does it? I know you've heard of him. Metropolis, that movie with the girl that turned into the robot, or was it vice versa, but all the people were marching in and being the slaves. He did that in the 20s, and he was the greatest thing in Germany and did all their famous movies. And then he came to the United States and became I Love America, and he fit right in because they were all eugenics too. Everybody was all eugenics all the time until they started faking it after they faked the atomic weapons. Here you go. Here's some proof. Here's those Academy, those people that were WPA actors. They just kept working. Cary Grant, Gary Cooper, they all were hired by the government because everybody needed to have a job and rewrite history. Spy?
They never show up. We're crowding call time.
Get the piano going. This will be a short one. I'll put it in code.
Well, you can't read it. But it's all double-crossing spy stuff. Oh, man, I have some of these desert roses.
Kids, I want to show another example that color is not a very good thing to use when you're identifying rocks. And that's because this and this are both
the pericardium, the rocks are the body parts. They're reserved in judgment. Look at, they like to cut them open.
In determining what a rock is, because this is quartz, and this is quartz too. Now it's a little hard to see with our light here, but this is actually yellow. And if this is polished and cut to be a gemstone, then it looks like this.
You know that the Bible says we are living stones created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And then you build up gold, silver, and precious stones.
And last little one I want to show you, this is mica, and it has such dramatic layers that flake off so easily There was a
Now, the postulation pre-Paco, when I was doing Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past about mica, was that's the muscles in the eyes that has that liquid that, it's in the little flakes because it has to be connected, that only a single portion of it gets focused on at one time. Best case scenario, we'll become so adept at identifying the body parts and doing things that we'll be able to look into the mica and actually see the last thing that the Titan saw, or the human that died in the flood and is reserved in judgment. Mica, mysterious, right?
mica mine in Nevada that was located several hours drive from here. And in the early 1930s at this mica mine, people made windows out of mica. They would take a large piece of mica and they would carefully peel off one of these pieces. And if they got it small enough, it was translucent. Light would pass through. And that's what the miners used to make windows in their homes.
Whoa.
Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
So there are so many different.
Doesn't sound that crazy. Huh. So I looked up this word. And I think it's almost like that. It has to do, it's gypsum. There's so many different types of gypsum. Sulfate minerals. What's this? Oh my goodness. They changed the name of Facebook to Meta. Now Meta doesn't work. Well, anyway, that's what the France news people are saying. Meta doesn't work, so they canceled the $5 billion project.
Life, and where the people were supposed to join as avatars and build virtual hangouts. And here's a quick recap for you.
I believe the metaverse is the next chapter for the internet, and it's the next chapter for our company too. All right, perfect.
They didn't change the name of the company.
Reality Unit, Reality Labs, and this metaverse push. Then there's the celebrity partnerships, the virtual concepts and brand activations, built on this idea that we would strap into these headsets and be transported. But now, nearly 5 years later, Meta has announced that it would remove Horizon Worlds from Quest headsets altogether. It was supposed to disappear from VR by June 15 and live on only as a mobile app. Now, a day later, the Meta's CTO.
What a waste of time and money, huh? So I wanted to see how they made her clothes and how hard it is to make a blanket. She was buried in a log coffin. Isn't that crazy? I wonder if there's any videos on it, something real short. Oh, this doesn't look short. Wait, where's so she was buried in this.
In Denmark in 1921. See a string skirt.
Anyway, I watched a video of where they made a replica of the blanket, and it took it looked like highly trained museum curators working their butt off 10 days to make the blanket. And they knew what they were doing. Here's these Bible study. You are dust. Am I sharing? Yep, looks like it. Now we get to what you wanted. You are dust. Dust to the dust. Look, the first time this dust is used, 47 times a pair. Right? That's the first one. Is it used before that? No. This is the same thing. You're the dust of the ground. But I want to go back. For you are the dust. This is what you're taken out of the dust. Dust you are. And dust you will return. Wow. The number of the dust of the earth. Is that the promise to Abraham? That's rhetorical. So somebody's smart realizing, oh my goodness, I'm but dust. The dust. It's a big deal. I didn't have time to get into that movie about the Golden Compass and how much they denied there was even such a thing as dust. Bring you down your fortress to the dust of ground. So all of the time from Isaiah 25 and Isaiah 25, Isaiah 25 and Isaiah 24, when it talks about this dust, this is, you can see, getting a lot of Genesis. Let's get to Isaiah. You'll see we're almost there. There's 25. Oh, it's not the same dust. So let's see. Let's go back. Now, what is up with this dust? Up here. It is that same of the dust. I might have looked up the ground. They'll take you down to the ground, the fortress of dust. But I looked it up here now. Let's see what this one is. And to dust you will eat. So it's that same one. What verse did this go back to? Nehemiah 4:10. The workers are getting tired. There's so much dust. Their strength is gone. They're doing what I think the people had to do after Armageddon. And then after the reaping also, they have to dig out. The Bible never said there wasn't going to be any more floods that affected the whole earth. It said there wasn't going to be any more floods that killed every single living thing that walked on and lived on the earth or flew. It's a big difference because obviously the water is a big deal, man. Okay, too much dust. So when they heard the sound, the voice of your brother, and this is blood cried out. What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood. I'm pretty sure I have the Genesis 4:10 pulled up here. I'll refresh your memory with it. And the Lord said, what have you done? I think he polluted, made it worse that you're going to have thorns and stuff. He made it somehow to where the people went completely nuts. The humans, their mind was on evil continuously. And I know some guys that were pretty bad, but they were just super horny, but it wasn't like they're going around killing everybody and chopping their head off. That makes it sound like what's going on when their mind's continuous on evil. What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood crieth out to me from the ground. Huh. It is that voice. What have you done? It's the ground. It's not the dust that's crying out. It's the okay. All these things that crawl on the not dust. And this is what Ha-Adam. So you got Adamah, which is the ground. Ha-Adam, Genesis 2:5 is there. Genesis 1, there were only the Titan Lake, whatever they were doing with their thing, worshiping their Titan god, but their Titan gods got a council in heaven and had to die like men because they didn't give good clean water. Look, here's this man. There was no man to love the ground, to cultivate it. There was not a man. We a damn, hot damn. There was no man like us, but had to get a man from the dust. He had to form him from the dust. You notice that's what happened here in verse 7. Then the Lord God formed the man from the dust. He didn't create him in his image, male and female. He got this guy going and put him to work. He breathed the pneuma into him right here. See, Eve later, much later, didn't have to have the pneuma exhaled into her nostrils. It was good to go. She was good to go. It passed on like sin to us. And we became one of those living pneumas. It really isn't. And we became a living, you're going to see, it's like not that big a deal, you know. We became a living one of these. Okay. Just a dead man walking. Kind of, right? From the Gautama, breathed it into us, and the living man became being that has life, like the living creatures in the water, like the creatures that scurry on the ground, or the creatures that live inside us. That's what we are. But at least we have a soul, and we're going to be judged. And I guess somehow the creatures that live in us are going to be judged by how we do. So if you ever wonder, there's no such thing as like, oh, we're gods, but in a way, we have a temple. God's put us in charge right now. There are 5 different types of pneuma, living creatures. Some of them marry, mate for life, have children, bury their dead. And their generations roll really fast, and when they wear out, it falls out of your ear because their apartments are earwax. But they need a place to live, and when you sleep, they sleep. What you eat, they eat. What your intention is their intention. And if you let them, they will lie to you. They'll tell you, you can't walk one more step when you could do 10 more push-ups. Trust me on that one. Dust. Talking about dust. I got so much of this other stuff, but I want to, we're going to be looking at the Fritz Lang stuff, this stuff. Look. Oh my goodness. What were those Germans putting on their rocket stuff? Oh, this is from that Fritz Lang. He's a guy that made a movie in the 1920s called Women in the Moon, and they talked about multiple stage rockets. We'll get to that. A little bit about the Helen Keller conspiracy coming up after the Bible study. That's stupid. I was going to get tired of talking about Helen Keller. This is a guy whose heart broke. She fooled him for 50 years, and then he had to go, she lied to me, but now nobody likes him because they still like her. Somebody said a meteor hit the moon. I can't get any verification of that. Wow, it wasn't until 1945 these guys started doing plastic, making toy soldiers, wax models, and now that plastic is in everything. From that, they got nanoparticles that can work their way through the blood-brain barrier. It started with this type of crap, and then they could mold. They got a whole group of orphan-trained people to think everybody should go to war, and if you die a glorious death, you'll be like a Spartan. Some kind of bullshit. These guys, this thing, more about why they changed the tone. Taco Bray, is he a murdering Jesuit or not? Close with a little bit of geocentricity, but as far as the dust goes and being made from the ground, obviously, we're no better than the things that creep on the ground. I wondered sometimes when I was younger. I remember it's different for me. I can honestly say, before my first vision, when I was taking LSD and praying, closed the Bible and said, I can't find one thing Jesus said wrong. I was laid down on the bed in a vision, and when I got out of it, there were a lot of times Bible reading, I would go, why did David say I'm like a worm? Huh. There was so much to learn back then. Let's go. So the living being, all those have living souls too. It's the soul that man became when they breathed that into us. Look, we became a soul. Like these guys, the creepy crawly thing. So, but good for us. Good for me. I'm all down with it. I love it. Yay. I mean, it's now that by his stripes I'm healed. I like it. So just show you that this is that same thing, and that's how that living thing works out. Your living soul. And don't do that blood, because that's where the life is. Remember, we want to make sure that if we can, we're tying it all together. Here's the main takeaway. This is a judgment on the whole earth. Is this the upcoming judgment? Is it one of those already once more? I don't know. But it does seem there was Noah's flood. There was Armageddon. There was the reaping. And then the build back now. We're in the reset. But so it's not only one time. But when it does happen, it goes down like this. Behold, the Lord will empty the earth and make it desolate, and he will twist its surface and scatter its inhabitants. So I think this is not us all the way, because we started scattered, and we're gonna be running for the hills. But when we get rescued, it's that cleansing fire than the great white throne. So I think that this is how it went down before, and then after the great reaping, we're like, it's not even a remnant. We're left as staggering fugitives or something. That's not in this verse, but this is enough. Get ready for verse 2. It's a long verse. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the slave, so with the master, as with the maid, so with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller. With the crescendo here, what the takeaway is that whenever there is one of these big boom equalizers, the borrowers, the lenders, the priest class, everybody, you're all broke. All your money's locked into something that doesn't work because there was an EMP or a plasma event. So it's describing the great equalizer, where all of a sudden the only thing that matters isn't what station in life you were born to. It's what you have up here, and is God on your side? Isaiah 24, continuing in the long verse 2, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the creditor, so with the debtor, the earth shall be utterly empty and utterly plundered. Oh no, for the Lord has spoken this word. Yikes. You want to know what else is going to happen and why? The earth lies defiled under its inhabitants. That's us. That was our great-great-grandparents. Nothing. No big deal. Let's keep transgressing law, violating statutes, broken everlasting covenant. That's not good. The curse devours the earth. Inhabitants suffer for their guilt. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are scorched, and few men are left. Okay. So that was what they had to look forward to. But the wine mourns, the vine languages, or languishes. All the merry-hearted men sigh. The mirth of the tambourine is stilled, but not forever. I still feel like dancing sometime. The noise of the jubilant has ceased. The mirth of the lyre is stilled. No more do they drink wine with singing. Strong drink is bitter for those who drink it. The wasted city is broken down. Every house is shut up so that none can enter. Uh-oh. There's an outcry in the streets for a lack of wine. All joy has grown dark. The gladness of the earth is banished. Yikes. Desolation is left, and the city gates are battered into ruins. We've seen that. For thus it shall be in the midst of the earth among the nations, as when an olive tree is beaten at the gleaning, when the grape harvest is done. Lift up your voices, east to west. Therefore, east, give glory to the Lord. Coastlands of the sea, give glory to the name. Glory to the righteous one. The ends of the earth are going to hear the songs of glory to the righteous one. But I say, I waste away, woe is me. For the traitors, oh man, those wolves in sheep clothing, will betray. The traitors have betrayed. They do what they do. Terror and the pit and the snare are upon you, O inhabitants of the earth. He who flees at the sound of terror shall fall into the pit. You know, you shouldn't have to flee. You should already be safely in the mountains playing games and having bonfires with Paco. I'll show you how to fish once I learn. The earth is utterly broken. Here we go. Okay, what does that mean? That the earth is split apart. The earth is violently shaken. We know its foundations are going to hold tight. They can't be moved. But the earth staggers like a drunken man and sways like a hut. Okay, that's like an earthquake. And we know there's some big ones mentioned. The earth's transgression lies heavy upon it, and it falls and will not rise again. On that day, the Lord will punish the angels. Well, here, this is happening on earth because people like me and my friends were kind of knucklehead, and before we got all this love and grace shown to us, we were breaking the everlasting covenant left and right. We were raised to do it. We were, come on, baby, do the twist. Well, here we go. Back to so anyway, this seems they're getting punished too, the host of heaven and the kings of the earth. It's like on that day. It's one of those ones where, you know, on that day. Wow. These guys, the higher ones. That's that Isaiah 24. Isn't this like, you know, these guys, they went to worship up there, a lot of them. That's what, huh. Man, that's crazy. I mean, I go to the high, I like the high places, but I'm going to, you know, hey, a what? Man. Huh. It shall come to pass. They will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit. They will be shut up in a prison, and after many days they will be punished. Now, get a load of this. Then the moon will be confounded. We got the heavenly host getting a great big, hey, what's up? We get the moon going, yikes, hey, what's going on here? And the sun going, stop looking at me. Stop looking at me. Because it's happening. What they did, they rebelled at the thought of a manifested someone in flesh being worshipped by the spirits. Well, they knew one who walked among the fiery stones. This continued, or was this a different? Was this a continuation, a new thing, or an utterance of that now that it's settled in heaven and on earth, there he is, our Redeemer. It just, oh Lord, you are my God, I'll exalt you. There's times when there's nothing else you can do but just praise him. He's done these wonderful things. Plans formed from old. Faithful and sure plans from old. Now here's what he did. You've made the city a heap. All the star fort, that star fort's a ruin. Verse 23. It's like the last one was Nineveh and the big ones. They all, and then it became a judgment on the earth, never to be rebuilt, like the ones under the Sahara. Anybody be in a hurry to go, spare some extra money to dig those out? No, it's never going to enter their mind. You're not going to get to those. We're not going to go find those. We're not going to find the real Jerusalem and the other holy cities. Woo! Motionless, kept silent, standing still, that sun's confounded? No. Relaxed, rested, kept silent. Is there anything from Isaiah in here? Uh-oh. I don't see it. Better look up all 30. I'm going to speed down. Lamentations, Ezekiel. No, nothing in there. So what is being silent? That's not like confounded. How is it cut down? What do we got here? The Lord God took the man. Okay, now that's a separate thing here. Our God has doomed us. Rest in the Lord. To be silent, be still, as stone. Once you're frozen in judgment. Sun, stand still. I wonder, that happens with the Barak, the glittering sword. I'm going to just glance one more time at the Psalms. There's Isaiah 23. So this really is like kind of the start of what leads to 24. He's going through Oracle, Tyre, and Sidon, but it's not like he didn't go through Jerusalem first. And even then, he starts with how Babylon, you're going down. God used him for a while. Here you go, Egypt and Cush. Isaiah, you're getting them all right there. But, eventually we get back to 23. Laid waste. You are an exalted city from old. Huh. It's like the Nile, stretched out over the kingdom. Let's see. Is this what they're talking about? Or was it in Nahum? Let's see, here's a rock, established them for reproof. Okay, so they kept on draining the ocean, mercilessly killing the nations, using the dragnet. Anyway, they were doing it wrong. Soul was puffed up. They took their stand. They built the town on iniquity. And this isn't even they're not talking about a Jewish town, you know. His brightness was like light. Splendor covered the heavens. His rays flashed from his hand, and there he veiled his power. Before him went pestilence. Plague followed at his heel. Okay, he stood and measured the earth. He said, we're going to make sure we get it all. Eternal mountains scattered. Everlasting hills sunk low. These are the everlasting ways, the tents of Cushan in affliction. Yow, was your wrath against the rivers? You're mad at the rivers? No. But he did ride on his horse, a chariot of salvation. He stripped his sheath from his bow, now calling for many arrows that split the earth with these rivers. These mountains saw you. They writhed. That means it was like shaking in fear. Sun and moon stood still in their place. This isn't even the book of Nahum, but it does talk about these arrows, his spear, and his sword, because after the oceans doesn't receive all the water from the rivers and the streams anymore, God had to use his spear to cut gorges in it, because that's what happens. And then at the light of his arrows they sped. It was the flash of his lightning spear. That word means Barack. Like, it's what they named Barack Obama after. All you have to do is look for Barack. It says it's a glittering sword. And by it, the number 1300 always means lightning. It always means an electrical charge of where certain types, one type, human, which is also like the Titan flesh, because they were going to die like men, boom, reserved in judgment. John the Baptist told him, don't give me no crap because you're a descendant from Abraham. God can raise up descendants from these stones. The stones could have cried out if every prophecy wasn't fulfilled. Thus saith the Lord. We're wrapping this up. So now that's the glittering sword, spear, going through, was going to show you the Nahum thing because we're getting a little more. I like it because it's like, it calls Nineveh entire. It goes like, populace, no. When I learned it, because, I read King James was all there was that was Masoretic text for 25 years when I was a young Christian. And it was always, art thou better than populace? No. That's just like saying, you think you're better and stronger than Nineveh? So who's going to stand before his indignation? It's not going to be good. Mountains quake and melt. Yep. Earth heaving. Yep. We got it all coming, right? He's going to be rebuking the sea, whirlwind storm, blah, blah, blah. Lord is good, stronghold in the day of trouble. You want to be on his side, pursue his enemies into the darkness. It's not going to be good for them. So we want to be there, yoked. His burden is easy, faithful to the end. We got it, right? Now here's Nineveh. You're going down. Jonah warned them. We're going to be warning you. Chariots going to go racing through the street. They come in with the flashing metal. Soldiers are going to be dressed in scarlet. That's red. They're going to gleam like the torches. They dart like lightning. He remembers his officers. They stumble as they go. They hasten as the wall. Siege tower is set up. The river gates are open. The palace melts away. Yikes. Its mistress is stripped. She's carried off. Her slave girls lamenting, moaning like doves and beating their breasts. Nineveh is like a pool whose water runs away. Halt, halt, they cry. But none turn back. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. There is no end to the treasure. Yikes. You know, when the Bible was proven to the people, I was going to look it up, but I know that you know. The Apostle Peter says here, because we're speaking in these tongues, this is the sign of the prophet, that this is that generation that is come upon us. You know, the stammering lips and other tongues. Consecrate a fast. The Almighty is going to come. Be prepared. It's not a long book. Sound the trumpet, the day of alarm. Appearance of horses. Flame burns before them. Huh. So this is what Joel, according to Peter, was fulfilling that day when the Gentiles heard them giving glory to God. It was that great, powerful people. Their like has never been seen, nor will be again after them through all the years of generation. So their judgment was harsher. Their enemies were harder. Not that we're going to have a picnic, okay? But when those people attacked them, it was like the fires devouring before them, and there was a flame behind them, burning them, driving them forward. And the land ahead of them looked like the Garden of Eden. But behind them, they left nothing but desolate wilderness, because they were like big human locusts. They were just taking everything. They kind of like had big long hair, like horse manes. They were strong as horses, but they also had chariots rumbling with real horses. They leap on the tops of mountains. They crack like the flame of fire, devouring the stubble. Like a powerful army, they're drawn up. So this is what Peter was warning them, that generation, the ones that said, we'll take Barabbas. Let us wash our hands of Jesus' blood. Before them, the people are in anguish. All faces grow pale. Like warriors, they charge. Like soldiers, they scale the wall. They march each on his own way. They do not swerve from their past. They do not jostle one another. Each marches in his path. They burst through the weapons and are not halted. They leaped upon the city. They ran upon the walls. They climbed into the houses. They entered the windows like a thief. Yikes, earth quaked before them. Heavens and earth trembled. Here we go again. Sun and the moon darkened. Stars withdrew their shining. Yike. Zippity doo-dah. Now, the Lord utters his voice, and his camp is exceedingly great. I wonder if that's the camp of the saints. It's certainly not somebody waiting for him at the globe-centric North Pole. That's not even the real magnetic part. But this is his steadfast love. Blow the trumpet in Zion. You know, Joel 3, Tyre and Sidon, in those days, it was restored for a while, wasn't it? They had 40 more years where people kept coming, throwing the money at them, building it. Hasten and come, sickle and harvest. The valley of decision. The day is near for them. It was decision. And when he died, they saw sun and moon darken. Egypt became the desolation. What'll happen in those days? Swarming locusts, hopping locusts, destroying locusts. Wow. And this is what Peter prophesied that was coming upon them. Now, how did I get to this again? The Lord took the man and put him in the garden. Okay, does anybody want to compare what God did when he took Adam and said, now that you have a soul, and it was kind of like, he dangled that thing about the wife. It's not good for him to be alone, but it wasn't a while for him to make the man have a wife, but he took the man. Do you want to compare that to Genesis 6 when they took wives? Do you want to compare that? It's the same thing. You think he grabbed Adam by the head and, hey, you know what they think that means, right? Whether one at a time or a gang, if ever they just saw a girl, whoever they want, they had sex with them. All you book readers of Ezra and Jubilees and the Enochian things, you're just completely out of your minds. Here's only this one verse. I couldn't believe it. It's like, it's perfect. It's got them all. I mean, it's strangely the most solid, crazy root word that sticks through so many changes. I just had to pick one, and it was this one here, from out of the ground, Genesis 3:19. You were taken. This is that dust. For you are dust, and he took them. You're taken out of the ground. There's nothing to do with how they took those wives. They all took wives. Everybody did. It's something that was planned. And then you said, hey, I worked 7 years. You want to be my bride? Yeah. I sure do. So is that how I started? Just looking up that one? Can't be. Well, I don't know. So anyway, just so we get to that guy who did the first flatter or the first 3-stage rocket thing. He was Frederick Christian Anton Lang. Fritz Lang. He did that. Remember that? Metropolis? And then M, the first, murder of a guy who was lusting after a prostitute. And then he did Women in the Moon, showcased the multi-stage rocket, concept of a rocket launch pad, countdown clock, you name it, and they put the Satanists to work in Warner Brown and Jack Parsons at the same time saying, you can do it. We know you can. Just quit. What's with all the horny stuff? But we're making missiles. Well, just make the rockets and don't get in any trouble. I think that's what they said. I can't be sure. I wasn't there. Here's that movie. To the moon. Woman on the moon. So you just got to do it. It's not hard to make a movie. You just got to get somebody to buy all that stuff. Somebody to write the script. Gravity's Rainbow. This knucklehead is getting more and more popular. Gravity's Rainbow deals with the V2 of Sherwood. Everybody's going to be propping up. We got to go to the moon. Helen Keller. You know what? When she was 12, 13, she was writing, essays on why people should be communist, socialist. And then when her teacher, Anne Sullivan, died, that was it. She quit being smart and couldn't do it anymore. So everybody thinks it was her. This guy, it took him 50 years to figure out it was her. And he ran the Perkin Institute for the Blind in Boston. And he was her defender for years. But then he was like, no, I refuse to believe she was innocent. She did it. He'll testify in court. She did it. But, he had to say he's sorry eventually, but, they forced him to do it. But it's just, I thought I'd have a story about this until I got all into the your dust thing. There'll be more dust coming up. More dust. Story of her life, just incident. This is the one, plagiarism, obvious plagiarism. but they covered up because, well, she's a girl. Anybody hears that? Looks like a new crater on the moon. New crater on the moon. I don't know. Lionel. I don't know what's the deal with this. But they made him in Westphalia. That looked big. Oh, this Lionel. That was it was one of those pictures I showed you. Remember? Am I sharing the screen here? It was from the 12 Monkeys movie. I saw one of the things said Lionel somewhere. Right there. And I didn't know what it was. Lineol. I think that's as close as I could get to it. Yeah, that's it. So actually, that was and it's something from a very important movie about the vaccines that they're trying to, they have to tell us how they do it. They did a pretty good job. Really, the first hard plastic. Not a lot of info on it here, but the towns they came from, it was just kind of interesting. After World War II, they quickly resumed making their little model figures and became a state-owned operation. It ceased. But that was this, it had a competition. Well, look, is this its this was its competition. They also, had a factory that was a star fort assigned to them to make these. It's part of the brainwashing before you had radio. You only had those, they still had those magic lantern things. Now look at that. A board game, Aeroplane to the Moon. Card games. So this company made those things and the hard plastic, but these are cast metal. All about how to go to war. Huh. A little bit more. We're almost wrapping this one up. I thought it'd be a little bit longer. I usually don't go per Professor Jang. But, I mean, it's obvious. We're set up to go broke, and then everybody will be equal. Unless you live in the city, then you'll be dead.
Bill, lock you in.
We are uncomfortable as this war spirals out of control. Welcome in to the show. So glad to have all of you here. We've got a very special guest on the show today.
That's right. You probably.
We lost against the Houthis. We made a lot of mistakes, but we don't know how to beat them. But if you ask us to do it again, we'll use the same strategy because we don't know what else to do.
Right.
Okay. That's basically the Pentagon. And so we're seeing this play out right now in Iran, where these strategies don't really work. These past 3 weeks have shown shock and awe doesn't really work, but they don't know what else to do, so they keep on doing it. And now what they're doing is they're thinking about sending the Marines in for an amphibious landing because that's just what you do, even though every military analyst you talk to will tell you that this is a suicide mission.
I think this guy couldn't be more China spy, but he's right about that. How recent did they get into messing with your mind? And why I think, people act like it's going to be such a drag, oh, your wife will have to wear a bonnet and you'll be away from your cell phone and your 401k. I don't want to go live in the mountain and eat fresh food and be safe when they burn the cities because then everybody will be sad. You don't know me. Why would everybody be sad all the time if we're not being chased that day? If we got people out there making sure, yep, nobody's within 20 miles of us, Michael. Good. Let's have a bonfire. Let's get some of those drummers out and do that, But these guys, it's funny. They got the concert pitch figured out. They didn't want these round numbers. They prefer the decimals. I think I tried to show that. First proposed right after Satan was loosed in 1711. Yes, I have all the dates. It's not this show, but I have reason. I'm not guessing in 1711. It's always going to stay that until 2046 when we're judged, cleansed by the fire. This guy did it. He did. This guy's involved in everything, and I don't know why they don't have a bigger thing here. But when you're like the vibrating string and set the pitch and you give them, it's like, here's how you work your tuning fork. And this guy goes like, wow, does that mean I can build all the churches in the world? Yeah, you get credit for building all the churches and knowing everything. And he even made plans for Washington, D.C. He figured out everything. Nobody could be smart without this guy. Concert pitch. History of pitch. Nah. Taco Bray. Let's see. Taco, not Paco. Invention of the telescope launched the scientific revolution. He noticed a new star brighter than any star or planet, got his backing from the king, and helped everybody believe something that was used for 1,500 years, and taught them the philosophical benefits of the Ptolemaic system. Earth is stationary. Maybe they didn't know it was flat, but at least it's stationary, and they had the math to prove it. So, but eventually it lost out to the Jesuits, even though they didn't have the proof. Huh. So this is a part of history too. It's something I believed in, geocentrism. I started believing in it in 1995. They released Flat Earth, and I was in for it. But the Isaac Newton, the Galileo, Kepler, Copernicus, the idea that it was Rome all the time, and now John Birch Society is working with them. We have the same spiritism, putting everything out there. So I'm going to let it go there, but I am going to be like a reminder, put silver in your water. It's a natural antibiotic. The next best thing would be take colloidal silver every day. But we had radon in our water where I lived in the same house for 25 years, paid it off in 17. We had to have the 5 gallons of water, and I always had a dime in there. Clean it off, and it never gets dirty. It stays clean, and it's always in there. It wasn't a bad thing to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. It meant your parents were educated enough to know that it was God's natural antibiotic. And even the silver plate is good enough. Did you know this is a flat earth nation? The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. I know it's hard. We have orphan trained brains. We've come to the realization, looks like our parents and grandparents were either in on it or they were millstoned into believing to work for a good union wage, but they've taken all that away now. But they were happy to send us to school while they worked for a living, and then they had to send mom to work, not because equal rights, but because they wanted to double the tax base and separate their children. Because what was it they've always said? Give me your children between 3 and 5 years old, and they'll have them for life. And they will. They have them millstoned. Unless you've been changed. Unless you've been born again with the correct analogy. You didn't choose your first birth at a rally and saying, oh, I want to be born and I'll take those parents. I'll be born at this time in history. I'll be this smart, but not too smart. I'll be handsome, but not too handsome. I don't want to be. You didn't get to choose anything. You don't choose your birth. You're born of the water, and then later you're born of the Spirit. You don't even know it when that happens, but slowly your heart changes. Things you used to love, you start to hate. Things you used to hate, you start to love. Next thing you know, you're on your knees. You believe in your heart that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. You can't stop. You're going to confess it in your mouth. Mom, I believe Jesus Christ died for my sins. By his stripes I'm healed. Hallelujah. Amen. She might love it. She might hate it, but you've always got a family of brothers because now you've proven you're one of those called. And you may be chosen if you're faithful. That's how it works. You've been given seed. You've been given son. You've been given talent. You've been given works to do after you're saved by grace from before the foundation of the earth. Now, the parables will only fit into that in somebody was given 5 talents. They used them all. He gave them more. If somebody didn't use their talents, even if it was only 1 or 2, they were not rewarded. As the book of James teaches us, he rewards the sons who are faithful. And God is a spirit. He's not really human or even anthropomorphic. He's a spirit that's everywhere all the time, knowing everything, knowing even the sparrows and the hares, and all powerful and God enough to do something about it. When he manifests in the flesh to teach a lesson to the angels in heaven that had a thing for the angel that walked on the fiery stones or something, it's to teach them a lesson. And he identifies as Father, and he provides perfect Son as an example of here's an obedient son. And we need to be obedient sons and daughters if we're going to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. I know that's what you want. It's what I want. My friends and I are never going to tell you anything else. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sana. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios, amigos, from the border of